Hello, and welcome to another Containment Breach 3-minute meet from Fugitive Poems. And they're never, ever, 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 not once, 3 minutes. I'm Christian DiMatteo, co-founder of Fugitive Poems. Today we're going to be talking with a contributor to Containment Breach Volume 3 of Clouds and Ether. We have had Containment Breach Volume 1, Quarantine Chronicles. We have had Containment Breach Volume 2, Myth Reborn. And now we're doing Of Clouds and Ether. As of the recording, it has 9 days left, so probably 8 or 7 when this comes out. On Kickstarter, we're fully funded. You're going to want to get your book. The stretch goals are crazy cool. And we have with us today Travis B. Hill, who has one of the coolest stories in Myth Reborn, which I just blanked on the name of completely. How about that?
Noble Purposes.
Noble Purposes, that's right. Which Brian Beardsley drew. We insisted he keep it black and white because his line work was so incredible on Travis's excellent script. Travis, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. You blanked on the name, but you were the one that named it. So
I did not.
You did.
You went with Mark Capitelli's suggestion.
Did I?
Yeah.
That email thread got confusing. For anybody listening to this, I'm terrible at naming things. So when it came to my story for Containment Breach Volume 2, it was taking on the myth of like Fenrir from Norse mythology and then trying to bring Ragnarok and Thor stopping him. And I just was like, oh yeah, we're just gonna call it Thor versus Fenrir. And Christian was like, you can't do that. You got to do something else. And so I was like, well, give me some suggestions. And then we got on this long email thread with Mark, the story editor, and it just turned into a long thing. And by the end, I was like, I picked one that were being thrown at me. So you're right. I guess it was Mark's, but there you go.
That's how I was lying on a hotel bed in Ocean City, Maryland, next to my son who was falling asleep, going back and forth with you and Mark. And this wasn't our first long conversation because we had to figure out what material Mjolnir was made out of. To make sure that we weren't taking it from Marvel. And I pulled out all my Norse mythology books. I was all over the internet. We were having all kinds of conversations. So this story was awesome. We were really involved with it, and it was terrific.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But also, yeah, that checking of like, hey, are we infringing on Marvel copyrights? Or are we sticking to Norse? And going through all that wasn't quite a learning experience for me of like really getting out the checklist. But I'm glad. I love the story. I love it. I love Brian's art. I loved where it got, your input, Mark's input, just you write a script and you think, oh, this is good. And then you get the art and you're like, oh, it's way better than I thought it was. And then and then you get all the edits to the script for the letters, and then you're like, man, I'm glad that I wrote the script, but I'm so glad everybody else is here because now it's something that people might actually want to read. So
I absolutely loved it.
yeah.
Oh, here we go. I had the name as Expectation.
Okay.
Which tied into the river that's with the with Fenrir in the mythology.
That's right.
The story deals with expectations. Thor flips these. Fenrir's son has expectations, and the archaic meaning means one's prospects of inheritance, and since it had to do with fathers and sons, so the river that Fenrir that pours out of Fenrir's name is expectation.
Okay,
I knew I could find it.
All right. Definitely more clever than whatever I was coming up with.
I wrote like a 5-point thing, and then Mark was like, "What about Noble Purpose?" And you're like, "There it goes." And I'm like, "Honestly, that's a good title."
Yeah.
It was a fan. I had to know. I had to look it up. It was a fantastic process, and then we had another fantastic process with Travis on Containment Breach Volume 3, the theme of which is Of Clouds and Ether. Go to Kickstarter right now and you'll see the beautiful cover that James Lyons did and a page from the story that Sam Prouse drew working with Travis. Travis, tell me a little bit about coming up with Sons and Fathers.
So I think with these Containment Breach anthologies, it's about playing off the theme, which I always think are really fun. And then if people don't know, and I'm sure it's been said in other interviews, but we every creative team gets like a quote given to them by another creative team. Like everybody puts theirs in, and then they're thrown out to everybody else. So the development came off of just those ideas, and I just thought, man, of Clouds and Ether, I was like, man, I really want an airship, but I also wanted to be in space with like sea monsters in space. And I started thinking of Jason Aaron's Thor, and you had these space sharks. And just I was like, I want to see a story like that. But what happens if there's this giant space kraken? And so I had all these elements in front of me, and then um I thought, man, this would be cool just to tell a story about. So here's an anthology. I'm in. I'm going to tell a story about something I think is cool, and I wanted to be high fantasy a little bit, like Crusaders or something. I always think of airships and high fantasy, and I always mess up his name, but I think it's Hiro Miyazaki is how you pronounce it. But I mean, just the master class, right? Like that's the top of the line, and so
Yeah.
that's where my creative brain goes of like, man, I mean, just in terms of storytelling of what he was doing in those stories, and what he's done all over the years with every single film he's made. Just fantastic from start to finish. So, um, so then I just kind of put a revenge, I don't want to give too much away. Uh, but you have a captain of an airship, um, on a revenge quest. That's what it is. That's what I'll say. And so I thought that was something you could put at the heart of it. And oddly enough, again through the editorial process, I love the editorial process. Like it's crazy how much when I first started in comics, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to rewrite anything. I used to hear people complaining about the editorial process when I first started out, and I used to always say like, well, if you get it right the first time, you don't have to worry about it or whatever. And then I would say that's my motto, like get it right the first time or whatever. But now you just realize how much better the story is made through that process. And so I remember you coming back after the first iteration of the story and said, "Hey, you're doing too much of this." Like there was so much flashback in the story, so much, and you were like, "No." And then there was a little. It was going too many different directions. I'm sorry, somebody's coming to my house. You might hear my dogs barking. I have no idea, but I think the story was like lingering too long, and it needed to be cut earlier and faster. And I remember you saying like, "Hey, the beginning of the story is here. You're starting it too early, and you need to get out of the story sooner." And then all this flashback is too much fluff. But if you can like hem it down, then you really have these emotional beats. And so I took those notes and crafted the story that we've got, and it really resonated a lot more, and I really appreciated that. And so the editorial eyes that we've had on Containment Breach are top level. Like any editor byline in that book is definitely worthy of attention, and I think that I've just really enjoyed working with you and everybody on the team, and especially Sam's art. Sam's art was great. Like I just thought he really got like kind of the vastness of what I was thinking, but also kind of the personalized kind of family, interpersonal connections, relations, all within that. So yeah, I'm really happy with where the story's at, and I hope that people will go and back the book and get the chance to read it. I mean, it's fully funded now, so it's not like, hey, can you support this so we can get it made? It's, hey, if you want to read a lot of really good stories, you might want to go grab this.
140 pages
Yeah.
of wild sci-fi. Yeah,
And
you
those,
go ahead.
by the way, and those movie poster covers, those are, I don't know if they're covers or if they're like pinups or whatever, but they're great. They're great. Are they going to be like bonus material in the back of the book at all?
Actually, that's something we've been talking about. It was a last minute idea. The artists
Yeah.
that did them have nothing but my appreciation because it came to
Yeah.
me out of nowhere a week before launch. And I reached out to about 5 people, and 3 were like, I can do it in that time. We actually, for volume 4, which is coming in July,
Okay.
folks,
Okay.
uh, for volume 4, I'm actually going to have artists from one project do a movie poster, faux movie poster for someone else's. So we're going to
Fun.
get a
That
different
was good.
interpretation. I'm
I
really
like that.
excited about that.
Like that.
I've worked with Sam Prouse a number of times on one pagers for the Comic Jam,
Yeah.
thecomicjam.com. Go there, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, then go to the Comic Jam and follow them everywhere you can. But I got to tell you, one of my favorite experiences, not but one of my favorite experiences on Containment Breach Volume 3 was you and I talking story. Because your story, the reason it was so big is you said you wanted to make something cool, and you built this whole world, and we knew we had this limited space. You and I
Yeah.
had a phone conversation at one point, which I don't get to do very often. It's usually all email, right? And it was one of the
Christian made the mistake. Christian made the mistake. Give me his phone number, and I use it. Now I'm just like, hey man, I got more questions.
call me anytime. I love talking to you. One of the
Yeah.
high points of that moment was getting to talk to you on the phone and bounce ideas back and forth,
Yeah.
because you had so many ideas. And and thank you for everything you said about editing at Fugitive Poems. We I love editing people's work, and I have someone else edit all of my work, because you can't edit your own stuff. And I say this because Travis told you told this whole story about the editing that we did, but you were an editor on volume 2,
Right. Yeah.
and would have been an editor on volume 3 as well, but that story didn't end up. The team wasn't able to do it.
Mm.
But I would hire Travis as an editor over and over and over again. You really do tremendous work as well. Everything that you said about us, and me, I feel the same way about you. So, folks, if you're looking for an editor, that Travis Hill is the way to go. Travis B. Hill.
Well, let me know.
Tell me. So that came out beautiful. Sam knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Did the coloring, the line art, the coloring, and the lettering. And it's absolutely incredible. I can't wait for. I actually am so excited about it that I made our thank you in the second Kickstarter update. The first page of the comic. I wanted people
Great.
to see the first page of Sons and Fathers. That's
Um,
good. I'm so proud of it.
something we need to say is it almost didn't get made. It almost didn't happen. If you
Yeah.
remember, yeah. So if you don't know the process of Containment Breach, you send in your portfolio, and then they select the writers and artists that they want, and they pair them. So you don't pair yourself. Um, the problem is we don't have any more artists to pair you with. Like you don't. So you're like by yourself, and So and then Christian was like, if you know anybody that would want to pair up with you, let me know. And so this was when I was coming back from Heroes Con with Ben Huminick. And so I'm reading this email, and I said, Ben, do you want to do this with me? And he goes, there you go, Brody can't be broken. That's a great book, by the way.
It is.
It is. So if you get the chance to pick that up from Band of Bards, anything from Ben is great. And I'm only saying that because the 2 stories I've ever edited in comics outside of my work for Sequential Potential, which I'll talk about in a minute, have been Ben's anthology stories. So anytime
That's
Ben
right.
needs
That's what you
somebody,
did in volume 2.
I did. So anything Ben's working on, I will team up however I can. But so I looked at Ben and I said, Ben, do you want to do this with me? And he said, Travis, I have no time. Because him and I are doing a one shot, and I'll mention that in a minute. But he was like, man, I have no time. I cannot commit to this. I said, dang. And I said, you know what? Thinking about all the stuff I had going on, and then trying to get an artist to get on board, it was a lot. And so then I was like, I guess I'm not going to do it, but I'll wait. I'm not going to jump in and tell Christian I'm not going to do it. Because you had said you would look for an artist as well. And then maybe like a day or 2 later, you hit me up and said, hey, we got Sam Pros. And I was like, who is this dude? And I looked up his Twitter handle and his portfolio, and I was like, oh yes, this is awesome. So that's another thing. When I create, people will be like, sometimes artists will be like, hey, do you want to work together on something? And I'll say, hey, Yeah, maybe toss me your portfolio, because that helps me think about what story we could tell together.
Yeah.
Seeing the art, and it usually puts me in a space of like, oh, this would be good if we told this type of story or this type of story. So seeing Sam's art really helped get the ball rolling. That Sam's art, the theme and the quote, I was all in, but it almost didn't get made because you're like, Travis, we want you in, but we have no artist for you. So maybe you'll
Yeah,
get a pro story.
because I had someone and they had to back out.
Yeah.
I damn it, I wanted you in. So I was hoping maybe with your connections, but while I was looking, I'm checking here right now. The theme that you received was debris ejected from a rift in space.
Oh yeah, I did. I don't think I wrote anything about that, by the way. I don't think that's what
You
it
did,
is.
you did.
Maybe.
So
Okay.
roughly when and all they're meant to be is a prompt, is literally to prompt you. And if it goes somewhere like mine that I did one comic with Jay Chic, who just released From Band of Bards. Is that upside down? That's upside down.
Yeah,
Hutch
how's it
Roan,
going?
him and I did a comic together in volume 3, and the prompt I had gotten was teens in space, and I'm like, what? Well, that's 2 pages of the 14. So
So, and part of it is like my first thought went to one of my favorite moments in all of comics. Just every time, like it is my favorite. When in Hickman's Avengers run. I don't know if you read this.
I think I have read that one.
Okay, so Thor and Hyperion or are his Avengers run sees kind of the Avengers scatter on these different missions before Secret Wars happens and resets the whole universe. But the Beyonders are coming through into the universe through a rift in space, and so Thor and Hyperion have been on this mission to the edge of time and space to stop them, right? And so immediately when I got the theme like debris through a rift in space, I was like, oh, that story. Let me get some inspiration there. But then I remembered I already paid homage to that piece in a story once before, and I was like, I can't just keep retelling. I can't keep paying homage to this story in like 19 different ways. It's not. I got to do something else. But that thinking of that story though, if you haven't read Hickman's Avengers, don't just go and read that moment. It's a great moment. I'm
That,
going to ruin it. You
one
should
of
have
the
read it,
things
but go read it.
that's
But
that's one of the things that we talked about on the
yeah,
phone is I said to you, I said, I pay less homage, go more
yeah,
Travis. Travis has
you did say
amazing
that. You
ideas.
did say that. Yeah, and
And
I think that. Go ahead.
I was actually gonna lead into your amazing ideas. Can you, because Travis, you've got a bunch of stuff coming out.
Sure.
And Techno Nights with Dauntless. Can you talk
Yeah.
to us about some of your projects and where we can find them?
Yeah. So Techno Nights is a Super Sentai story, kind of about. Um, it's a couple things. It's a Power Rangers esque team of heroes. Um, it is my like love letter to the Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles in my own kind of retelling or thought process. But it's like a team of Super Sentai Power Ranger type characters who battle off these kind of they manifest in our world as like physical beings, but they're from this digital realm, and so they are trying to constantly invade this realm. It's the Kako tech, right? Evil technology, and then they have their leader Anaximander, who is set on infiltrating the organic physical realm that we inhabit and taking it over and turning it into this digital space, right? And so but the story, you have this opening sequence that we used to promote the pre-sale of the book, that sees these Techno Knights when they're teenagers, right? Like the Power Rangers, like the Ninja Turtles. But then the story goes 20 years in the future, and this villain hasn't been seen since then, or maybe like once or whatever. And so these brothers have kind of all gone their separate ways. This and they've all grown up and they have jobs and Some of them are estranged from each other, and really it's like a love letter to my brothers. I have three brothers, and so there's four of us, and there's four main characters, and each one is modeled after one of myself and one of my three brothers, and just kind of how we interact. There's a lot of that interaction in there, but yeah, so it looks at like, hey, maybe they don't want to return to this child that, they don't want to return to this eternal war that they were recruited as child soldiers into. Like maybe they don't. Maybe they have a little bit different thought process now. And so then the question is, yeah, but despite all that, will they come back together to save the planet? And so it's kind of that quest. The first book is 58 page um, collection. It's a trilogy, so it gets you to the end, and there's these three stories. And so book one is being shipped out right now. Hardcovers are coming first for people who ordered the limited edition.
I'm
And
waiting
then
for it, man. I'm waiting for it. I ordered mine.
paperbacks are on their way. They've had some printing issues like everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's gotten backed up a little bit. We added another editing thing, right? I wrote 48 pages of script. We added 10 pages. Brent Fisher, who is an incredible editor, came in, and they gave fantastic notes. They just said, hey, you're missing this type of big moment that this story needs. Like they said, like, hey, I know you've told this like overarching trilogy storyline, but each moment, each book has to have its own big moment, and you're missing that. And I was like, I really am, yeah. And so then went back and wrote that in, and it ended up adding 10 pages, and Marcus was fine with that. Marcus
Jimenez, great guy.
But
do you know your Fugitive Poems connection to Brent Fisher?
No, I don't.
In volume 4, which I haven't said the name of yet,
Okay.
Brent did a story with Brian Beardsley.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and it's
I can't wait.
A badass story. So Brian Beardsley, who did your Containment Breach too, is doing a story, it's already made for. Tell us what else you've got coming out, and where we can find it.
I do want to say I can't go without saying that Marcus's art on Techno Nights is cinematic and big, and the action is just inspiring. So if you haven't picked it up, there will be some available for sale on Dauntless's website.
I loved his work on Gallus, and I'm really excited for that.
There you go. And he just keeps leveling up with every project. Here's the thing. Let me tell you this. He got so much better because he was also taking other smaller jobs while he was doing this. He got so much better during the course of the book that his ability to draw faces leveled up a lot. And he goes, hey, man, I need to go back, and the book was done. And he goes, hey, but I need to go back and redraw some faces and redraw some stuff because I'm so much better at it now. And I was like, all right, cool. But like, he's just getting so good.
That's awesome.
He's going to be, he's young too, like 24, 25, like give him 10 years, wait till he's old like me and you, and he'll be running things. So I'm excited. And also that connection you said about Brent and Brian, what I love is that the comic book community I love working with, like, oh yeah, these people are working together now, and I worked with them, and now they're together on this, and I just love that. I love
that's one of our goals, is to raise the banner of all these indie creators. What other projects do you have coming out? Where can we find them?
Okay, so Thorn is coming out with Advent Comics. We've been having we're just trying to figure out the schedule, right? It's
so good. I love it.
Moved around, but the Zero issues coming out, free comic book day to select shops that we've kind of been in talks with. So like about 500 of those issues will go out to various shops across the country. Issue 1, we're hopeful will be in shops in July. We should confirm that within the next week or so with Diamond.
Hold on 1 second. I'm going to interrupt you and tell you, if you have not reached out to the Spider's Web in Yonkers, New York, do so. They're a great comic shop, the Spider's Web in Yonkers, New York, and drop Fugitive Poems in my name. There's a new owner there, Thomas, who is tremendous, and I'm going to be there. Fugitive Poems going to be there on Free Comic Book Day, and we could put that next to Fugitive Poems books and get a hell of a lot of Travis Hill out there. So please,
Yeah.
and folks, go
Yeah.
to if you're in New York, go to the Spider's Web in Yonkers on Free Comic Book Day, and so hopefully Travis's book will be there.
Yeah, we'll see.
Thorn is so cool. Sorry.
Great. No. That's it. I think, yeah, right now we're trying to figure out how many of the issues we've got printed have been spoken for. That might be the problem. But if we have some, that's where they'll go there next. So, but yeah, so issue 1's coming. It's a 12-issue series. It's scheduled to release every other month for 24 months. Fantastic creative team on that. It's myself, artist Mark Pate, who does all the art and the letters. We brought on an incredible editor, Razul Berry, who is a podcaster and film producer out of New York. He's just editors that are great. All of his notes have enhanced every issue of that book. And then Sheldon Allen, who has several series with with Scout Comics. He's come on as a script consultant for the first handful of issues, but then he's also co-writing the back half of the story with me as we kind of figure out how to land the plane. So that team is filled out nicely. Tony over at Advent is publishing it. And so just, I think the 5 of us getting our heads together, we're hoping that this has some lasting impact. We've got a lot of things that we plan to bring out in conjunction with the comics themselves. So, and if you don't know about Thorn, follow me on Twitter, Travis B. Hill 5, and you can get the 0 issue for free from me on a PDF if you can't get it in your shop. So just talk to me. But issue 1 will be out soon. We have 4 issues completed. We're working on 5, 6, 7, and 8 right now, finalizing the scripts and the art. The thumbnails are out there. So
I've seen this story and it is terrific. Travis B. Hill 5 at Travis B. Hill 5. Where else can we find you, sir?
That's my same handle on Twitter and Instagram. One other story coming out next February, at least it's scheduled for next February, release in shops with Band of Bards, is A Last Goodbye. You might have seen that short story elsewhere, but Band of Bards reached out and said, hey, what if you added some conflict to the middle and we made it a big 40-page one-shot? And we said yes. And so it's a post-apocalyptic story, a man on a journey, making his last journey. Him and his dog come across some mutated humans and mutated beasts, and they have a throwdown. And he,
where was that originally? Where was the short?
It was just something that Ben and I put together to do. We did like 3 cons together, and we just did it as like a con exclusive. But now it's going to be in shop.
You
that's
sent
it.
that
Make your comics, and good things will happen.
That's right.
Last thing, it's also funding on Kickstarter. So if you're just a glutton for anthologies, Fractured Realms is on Kickstarter right now with Limit Break Comics, and just go check that out. The cover image of it's Viking. You take the theme of every story is you take a Norse myth and turn it into a horror story. So again, I've come to love this kind of stuff, like Myth Reborn. I did that with Thor and Fenrir. For this story, I took the legend of Balder and mistletoe, and turned it into a horror story. And the art is with the incredibly skilled JJ Lopez. So can't wait. So if you just love anthologies or if you love Norse mythology or horror, Limit Break has a great anthology going on right now. It's like $1,300 from being funded. So Fractured Realms.
I forgot to put it in the update I sent out today, and I'll put it in my next one. Travis B. Hill, I have been dying to talk to you again. I had so much fun last time we talked. You are an amazing person, a terrific writer. I'm honored to have you in 2 of the Containment Breaches. I look forward to working together again. I'm so psyched for all your projects. Ladies and gentlemen, fugitivepoems.com, at Fugitive Poems on Twitter, at CDM ETC, I know, CDM etc. on Twitter. At Jamlines2112 on Twitter is James, co-founder. And at Fugitive Poems and at Jamlines on Instagram. But the most important thing is to go right now to what's it called? Kickstarter, and
Yeah.
back Containment Breach of Volume 3.
Yeah.
Type in Containment Breach of Clouds and Ether. Back it. We got crazy stretch rewards. It's going on right now, unless you're watching this later. But go check, and maybe Volume 4 is going right now when you're watching it. Go check it out. You want this book. It's amazing. Travis, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Christian. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. We are Fugitive Poems, and we make comics.